happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. This is Disconnect to Connect, one word conversations. Um, this has been a very interesting week for me. It feels like um, it's still the beginning of the week for me, but also it feels like it has been a long week, and I don't know if it's because of the conversations that we've had. We've had some, we started off with death, right, and then unique, and yesterday we talked about believe, and for me, wrapping all those things in together, um, it was very insightful, and I think sometimes for me the process of looking for insight or discovering something, and that brings us to our word today. You know, I I really this just came up this now, so I just have to say that a part of my history is me working with Mr. Rogers in Pittsburgh at WQED when I was in college, and so every once in a while I just sound like Mr. Rogers when I'm talking about the word of the day is discover, right? So it just kind of hit me that way. So I don't know. I guess I'm in a silly mood today too. I think within the thing of discover and discovery, I really believe that there is fun in that, and there is an opportunity to see what's available, in our lives. So, as I do, I invite my friends to come in and have a conversation with me. And so, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, William?
I am doing great. Now, this is the part of the show when I invite my guests to introduce themselves however it feels comfortable.
I'm Karin Wiberg. My label for today, I guess, is writer and coach. I have a business, Clearsight Books, where I work with people writing books, helping them editorially, coaching. So I think of myself as a writer, and I know William and I have spent some time talking about his books and writing and
Right,
ideas. And yeah,
right.
so I'm excited
Wow.
to be here. And I can
I
use
know.
a
Well,
little fun and silly, so that's
great.
a great idea.
I don't know if that's
Some
it.
play.
Now someone said within our notes that the the video looks kind of crazy, but if it still looks a little crazy, let me know, and we'll kind of work on something to do that. But
If you got more details, let me know if it's
right,
me looking crazy. I
right.
can try switching cameras.
So yeah. So how does discover land for you?
Discover, I was so excited when I saw that that was my word. William assigns the words for us. And I saw discover, and I was like, my brain just lit up. And
Wow.
the very first thing that came to mind was a writing thing. And
Hmm.
it's about doing discovery drafts. And this is something that this is so useful for people when they hear it for the first time. A lot of people I work with when they're writing a book. This is a big thing. A book is a big thing.
Right.
So you know
Right.
it's a big thing. And they get worried because they think they're doing it wrong. They think they're supposed
Right.
to know everything right up front. And when I give them this idea of a discovery draft, that, hey, you can write the first draft just to figure out what you're trying to say,
Right.
it's like a relief to them that they don't have to know everything up front. So
Right.
I talk about the spectrum of writing, and this applies to strategy and it applies to a lot of other things. From emergent, this organic, evolving kind of approach to self-contained, which is very defined. I can make an outline. I know exactly what I want to say, this, and this. It's sort of the spectrum. And when you're writing this emergent kind of thing, you do need to discover what you're trying to say. So that was the
Right.
very first thing that jumped to my mind when I saw the word discover. I'm like, oh, discovery draft. You have to figure it out. Like I like to say, I think with my fingers. I have to type
Right.
something and write something to figure out what I'm actually thinking. So
Right.
writing is a discovery process for me.
Right. No, I totally get that. The challenge with that, even though I appreciate that and I went through that process and writing, my books, for me, discover was all it always, or many times, let's just say, I don't want to say always, it was this. I was going to discover something bad or something that I didn't like. It was like a negative thing. It's like if if it was hidden, if it was something that I had to look for, there was a reason why, and so there was a part of me that just wanted to just avoid it. It's like, okay, this is what I know. That's fine. I don't need to look at anything else. Look for anything, and and I think on this journey, this self discovery journey that I'm on for myself, just recognizing what's ever there is there. I get to decide if I'm going to put it in my story, if I'm going to write it in my book, or whatever's going to happen. But the more that I'm aware and am open to discovering
Yeah.
the parts of my life, then I can live fully.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that about finding something bad. I think there is something to that. It's like lifting up the rock and finding the gross bugs underneath. Like, do I
Right.
really want to find the gross bugs?
Right.
Um, it's what I've found, and this is true about writing. This is true about like coaching, counseling, personal discovery, personal growth work. If there's something that you're avoiding or you're feeling that emotion around it, that's probably the place you need to go
Right.
to figure out what
Right.
that is and why that feeling is bubbling up when you discover that little thing. Yeah.
What is the like in the writing process? I think because look, for me, I didn't. There's still a part of me that have a hard time embracing the author's label or the writer's
Yeah.
label. And so really discovering that I am that I can do that, and I do have a story to tell. I guess my question is, what is the biggest challenge with, soon to be writers or writers or people that take on that label?
Oh, you know what? That is such a ubiquitous problem. I had the same exact thing. The first time I think I put my LinkedIn profile, you put your little title there. And I think the
Right.
first time I put in writer, I was like butterflies in my stomach. It made me so
Right.
nervous to claim that as a label. Seriously.
Right.
So you're not alone. One of the biggest things that I see with people is they just have a fear of not having something worth saying, like
Right.
not having something to give to the world and that their voice doesn't matter. And
Hmm.
seriously face the same thing as myself. So I'm not, this is, this is such a common thing. I found I had to do a lot of affirmations, William,
Hmm.
when I was first starting to write for something beyond myself. Like I had to force myself to become visible with
Hmm.
my writing. I
Hmm.
started a blog, and kind of like you're doing with the videos here, the interviews, you you're doing every single day you're putting something out. Good, bad, or otherwise. Every single day you're doing something, right?
Right.
I did the
Absolutely.
same thing with my blog to get myself comfortable being visible. but I also had to do these affirmations of, I have a voice that others need to hear. And I
Right.
give that affirmation to people all the time. I have a voice that others need to hear. There's something I have to say that's valuable. And I tell my clients that all the time. There's somebody who needs your message.
Right.
You have to be brave enough to put it out in the world for them to hear at the right time in the right way that they need to hear it. But if
Right.
you don't put it out into the world, nobody can discover your message and get the value from it. So it's, yeah, that's a
Right.
common thing.
Right. And sometimes, and I think that's the other thing that, it's common, but for many of us, we feel like it's only me, right? Only I
Yeah,
feel this way, right?
yeah.
And then you hear that it's so common. I had someone say within a conversation, offline. It's kind of now it's like Facebook friends and offline friends, right? So now I have to like say, hey, this is a conversation that I had that you guys didn't know about. But she was saying that the inquiry, women are more inclined to inquire, about their life or something than men, and I don't, and we went back and forth, and I was like, and I was wondering, is that a conditional thing, or is that, is that like spot on? Some of the some of the men that you worked with, or women are easier, let's just say, to kind of have the discovery track and say, okay, what's working, what's not working, versus just kind of dealing with what's so.
Hmm. I have a little bit of a hard time with the question because I really don't think men and
Okay.
women are that different. And I think the differences show up from
Okay.
socialization. And I think
Okay.
I'm also really lucky to have a lot of men in my life who are very open and introspective and, in
Right.
touch with personal development and their own emotions. So
Right.
I feel like in that way, I don't see a lot of difference. Um,
Right.
yeah, yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
and I totally get that, but I just realized, I guess, for myself, and the reason why I related to it, and I kind of talked through it with her, is because if you would have asked me maybe 5 or 6 years ago, you know, who I was, or what level of understanding of self did I
Hmm.
have, I was like, oh yeah, I know exactly who I am and all that other kind of stuff, until I
Hmm.
didn't, right? Right?
Yeah,
And then it was like, holy crap, who am I? And then that I had a choice to show up as this, broke, busted, disappointed, mad person, or discover, myself beyond that, beyond the disappointments, beyond the hurt, beyond all of the other
yeah,
things. And I think before those moments, I really had no desire to go any further past than, my random 10-year plan for my life,
yeah.
and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah, do you think that that's more a factor of age and maturity? Like, do you think that's more of a life issue? Like, you get to a certain stage in your life, you start to think about things differently. Do you think that's more age than it is related to gender?
Yes, I do. I think there's definitely things that, in my 20s and in my 30s, and I'm still trying to there's a part of my 40s that I just kind of blur. But so it's like that I can see that I showed up totally different, and how I would listen to people, and how I would even listen
Yeah,
to myself has definitely changed. I am at
yeah.
my age, I am a lot kinder to myself. Let's just
Hmm.
say I have a little more grace for for myself. Um, and then, so it may be age. I don't know if you see the question. I want to put up the question that Brian had. um, and just go
Yeah, what would I
from
say
that.
to someone who thinks everything has already been said? There's an awful lot that has already been said. You can go back to
Right,
the nothing new under the sun. But I
right,
go back to people regularly. There's something unique about the way you are saying it. Like you might be
right,
saying something similar to someone else, but you've got your own perspective, your own life experience, your own vision that you bring to it. And like I
right,
said, there's somebody out there who needs to hear the right message in the right way, at the right place, at the right time.
right.
And that's uh, that's why I think it's so important that anybody who has something they feel they need to say needs to say it and get it out there.
Right. The one thing
Yeah.
how that shows up for me is I feel like I am continuing the conversation.
Oh, that's a great way to look
I
at it. Yeah.
There is,
Yeah.
there is, because look, I'm not the first person to talk about self-discovery and self-love and and
Sure.
self-awareness.
Yeah.
I get it. But how it's showing up in my life and how it's showing up, how I am communicating that is another part of that conversation.
Hmm.
I had a coach say something. I don't know if it was attributed to him or if somebody else said it, but it was kind of interesting in the sense that he was like, um, "Don't see yourself as a creator. See yourself as a discoverer." So everything is already created. You're just discovering another way of doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
if we see ourselves as discoverers, it is like, okay, this is what's here. And let's put my understanding, my appreciation, my all the different things and discover a new way of looking at it. And I think in some cases that has helped me get past the blank page, right? Because
Sure.
it feels like, oh my God, I have to say something amazing, or it's not worth even putting anything down. It's like, you know what? Just say what I'm going to say. Just
Yeah.
discover what comes out of this.
Yeah. So one of the big mindset shifts that I try to give to people is you don't have to write the book. You do not have to write the most
Right,
insightful brand new book ever that is going to
right,
wow the world, the great American novel or, the
right,
you don't have to do that. You just have to write a book. You just start
right,
with a book.
right,
There's a practice process to writing, number one, because once you get a book out there, you realize you can do it
right,
and the next one will be even better. But yeah, you don't have to wow people every single time. You'll probably wow a few people because they're the ones who
right,
need that message right when they're getting it. Yeah,
right,
that discovery thing. The other thing, going back to whether you're saying something that's actually really new, I find that sometimes it's not the newness of the thing you're saying, it's the way you're able to connect different pieces together. So for
right,
instance, right now I have a client who's connecting a lot of different resources and concepts about the economy and how we can move forward. It's not all new information, but it's connected in a new way to provide a comprehensive resource for people who are
right,
looking for that to move forward. So
right.
even if it's not a brand new thing you're saying, there are new perspectives to bring to it to continue the conversation and to discover the connections between all the different pieces.
Right. And I think and sometimes a part of that is, the connection, it's the timing.
Yes.
There I can honestly say that there are some messages and some stories and some things that I had no listening for because of the things that were
Yes.
going on in my head. And
Yep.
then it was like, whoa, where you been all my life? And it's like, dude, I've been saying this for for years. But
Yeah.
it's like now there's an awareness within that.
Yeah, that's totally true. You have to be ready, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, that kind of thing. But, there's a certain time when you are ready for a particular message. And sometimes then you move beyond that. And I'm going to think of one in particular. I'll just give an example. When I first read Seven Habits of Highly Productive
Right.
People or of Highly
Right.
Effective People, I can't remember the exact title. It was back early on in my corporate career. It was
Right.
such an insightful, eye-opening book for me. I tried to reread it a few years ago, and it just felt tedious to me, and I've been there, done that. I need something fresher, more
Right.
advanced, more perspective, whatever it might be. So you do have to be the right message at the right time. You do have to find that right message at the right time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think in honoring that, and I think that's the discovery of ourselves. The more that we are in tune to where we are, the more that we can put on, our discovery, equipment. I just saw this, this hat with the helmet and the
The
lights and
light
kind of
on
going
it.
right and just going after it. I mean, there are just um, following your curiosity is a core value of
Yeah.
of mine, and I think too often I'm just not curious. I choose not to be curious. Let's just say that I am curious, but I choose not to because
Yeah.
of I got better things to do. I don't want to get stuck
Yeah.
on the internet. Right? You know what I mean? It's like whatever,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
whatever I say. But I think the more that I am willing to discover what basically has caught my attention and my curiosity, and go with it, and then kind of find the connection in my life, and then share that, and I think in a busy world, in our the busyness of life, finding ways to discover new, discover, the world, the things that are like right in front of us is I think the is a noble endeavor. Let's just say, and I think too often we convince ourselves that we don't have time to be concerned about that.
There is so much out there. I think it's easy to get caught in, information overwhelm. There's so much
Hmm.
I love to take in information. That's like one of my
Right.
core things I love to do. I could just take in information all day. I could be a professional student. I love to
Right.
learn and think
Right.
and gather information. But there is so much of it out there. It's easy to get lost in it. It's easy to get
Right.
lost in less important information. So back to Brian's question a little bit is sometimes it's the curation and those drawing of those connections of different types of information that provides the value to your listener, your reader, whoever it is that
Right.
you're talking to. Yeah.
Right.
I think it's important to have that time back to the comment about playing and having fun to explore information, to
Right.
explore possibilities out there. I think it's just as important to block it out sometimes and listen to your
Right.
own intuition, your own voice, your own ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a question earlier. I didn't know if you got it.
Yeah.
Kelsey
Kelsey,
asked that right, how to discover your own voice. How do you can
that and that is actually directly related to what I just said. Sometimes you have to close everything out. Sometimes
right.
you have to close out the other voices. There's just, you hear about in marketing or in messaging, you hear about there's so much noise and you have to break through the static. You have to break through all the noise to get your own message heard.
Right.
Sometimes it's best to shut off all that noise and all that static, get in your own
Right.
head for a while, listen to the quiet. Like, don't do anything, don't go online,
Right.
get off technology, even don't read a book. I mean, just stay in your
Right.
own head for a while, meditate, journal, maybe some of those things to listen to yourself. Because I think we listen to so many other people so much of the time. Listen to yourself. So that's one thing. The other thing about finding your voice is practice. Like you have to
Right.
actually practice what you're doing, whether you're speaking or whether you're writing, whether it's an artistic style, whatever voice means in the context you're talking about.
Right.
A lot of it's practice. And William, like you're doing a really good thing doing your videos, your conversations every single day, because that's a form of practice to
Right.
see what's working, what's not working, to find how you want to speak into the world
Right.
with these conversations. So same thing if you're blogging every day or every week. that repetitive practice on a regular basis helps you discover what your own voice is. That's a lot of
No,
it.
I have definitely been there because I read a lot. I was on a schedule of reading 3 books a month, and it got to a point for me. It is that I didn't know where I began and the other book that I was reading, ended. And it was like, all right, stop. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What am I, help me process this. Let me understand this. And how am I going to now share or continue this conversation with other
Yeah.
people? And it was something that is, I honor the learning and I honor the discovery,
Mhm.
but sometimes you just have to stop. There's a concept of for me that I always say every once in a while, it's like there's a fine line between self-care and being lazy, right? So it's like I don't know what I'm being right now. And it's like sometimes there is a fine line between discovery and wasting time, and avoiding, things. What have you seen that come up for you? That it's like instead of doing something, instead of staying in it, well, I'm going to research a little more. I'm going
Oh
to
yeah.
find out.
Yeah. Okay, two things. First, I wanted to say one more thing on finding your voice. I have to say there's a classic concept quote from Stephen King in his book on writing, which is a combination of memoir and craft. He says, write with the door closed,
Hmm, okay.
you revise with the door open, meaning stay in your own world while you're trying to create something. Listen to your own
Okay.
voice, stay in your own world. Don't get distracted by other people's voices or other people's books or worlds that they're creating. Stay in your own. Once you've got your thoughts on the page, then open the door,
Got
meaning
it.
let other people see things so that they can give you feedback. So that was one thing I wanted to say on voice. And then the
Got it.
discovery, when are you in discovery mode versus when are you in procrastination mode?
Right.
That
Right.
happens to writers on a pretty regular basis. It's very
Right.
easy to say, oh, I'm just going to go research this
Right.
topic. I'm doing my world building for my science fiction novel and I need to go figure out how, robots work. I could go spend all
Right.
day on that. So there's a balance. And I would give a couple of tips on that front from a practical standpoint of set a time. If you need to go do some discovery, be intentional about it. Set a timer. Give yourself a half
Right.
hour to do that and then shift your attention back to something else. Or if you're like in the writing mode, like, so this was for the writing process, keep going in your writing, put a flag in there that you need to come back and do research. But
Hmm.
don't let it flow down. Don't let the need for research slow down the process of getting the words flowing onto the page.
Got it.
So yeah, I even have a blog about this topic, William, on
Okay.
procrastinating by discovery. so so like I said, I love to learn. I can go spend all kinds of time in classes, in
Right.
workshops, reading books, how to do something,
Right.
instead of actually taking all that knowledge I already have up here and applying it. So
Right.
I'm a
Well,
case
I
study.
know I know where my first Google search will be after the show to find that blog, so I can
Yeah.
so I can bookmark it. So,
Yes.
yeah, it is something. I wanted to go back to what we were talking about earlier
Yeah.
about the discovery possibly being negative and looking at something. Is there a way that you can encourage, or that you have found for yourself to kind of look under that rock
Mhm.
in that there might be a spider or a bug or so, or something under there, and just be not just curious enough, but brave enough, or have the courage to kind of go and discover something? Is that a part of the process too?
Totally. Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. I think understanding that our judgment of positive and negative sometimes may not be accurate, is one
Right.
thing. I think trusting in your gut, if you know your gut is telling you something, or if your gut is
Right.
fearful of something, like I said, I think that that is an indicator. You probably need to explore it and discover what it
Right.
actually is. I think one of the things that comes into play is, the whole lizard brain, the whole fight or
Right.
flight or freeze, that reaction that we have. Most of the time, if you find something negative, that you find that, squiggly bug under the rock, it's not actually going to hurt you. And
Right.
we get that
Just drop the
emotional
rock, right?
reaction. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Dead.
It's like all the cockroaches in North Carolina, those big ones outside.
Oh yeah.
You're like,
Oh
I used to
yeah.
scream when I saw them, and then I realized they weren't really going to do anything to me. So now I'm like,
Right.
another cockroach.
Right.
They're gross. Um, yeah, I think when you realize that that scary thing probably isn't going to actually physically harm you, like it might
Right.
cause you some discomfort, but you
Right.
can you can walk through the discomfort. You can manage to get through the discomfort. And when you get to the other side of the discomfort, there's a big sense of relief.
Right.
And it may be something that is, it could be something from your past that really needs to be healed. Like
Right.
maybe you discover something in therapy or counseling that needs to be healed before you can move on from it and start creating different patterns of behavior. Maybe it's something in coaching, like a challenge that you're just
Right.
scared about that your coach can help you get past, because once you get past that scary ugly thing,
Right.
there's so much freedom on the other side of it. So
Right.
I
There,
think just
there,
recognizing that can help make you feel a little bit braver in addressing it.
yeah. I, the children's books that I wrote, the Beyond the Shell,
Mm-hmm.
Finding You Beyond What Protects You was the first book,
Mm-hmm.
and The Journey to Stay You was the second book, and the second book was difficult for me. One, because it I what really came up for me, that even though that I felt that there were some challenging things in my childhood and some things that I didn't quite understand and was fearful of, or just how it occurred to me, to actually allow myself to not just write about it, but almost relive it and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of discover that it was like, yikes, and it's like,
Absolutely.
I felt for the little guy, right, and it's like, but at the same time, the resilience that he had to get through that, I was able to honor, and it wasn't this. I didn't feel like there was this victim, but there was this person going through some very difficult things and kind of found creative ways to maneuver it. And
Mhm.
without the process of discovering this children's book and kind of having that story, I would have never kind of embrace my younger self and kind of say, hey dude, thanks, thanks for getting us
Yeah.
here, type of thing. And it's like, it was, like I said, for a moment, and for moments it was difficult to look under that rock and see it's like crap,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just kind of go from there.
How did that transform you? How did you shift as a result of that?
I think the one thing that I came present to is that I've been having a conversation around self and self development, or really improving of myself, for a long time, longer than I
Mhm.
had language for that. Um, and so how it transformed me, it just allowed me to just be that, be follow my curiosities and not say that, yeah, self discovery or self, love or awareness is important and that's something that I do every once in a while. it is you. It is a part of you, and it's something that it's okay to have this conversation within my relationship, within my works. And it just, there was a freeing that I never had before of just being okay with, in some cases, just knowing enough about myself to keep it moving, instead of saying, once I get all my ducks together, or once I understand more about myself, then I can do something. It's like, okay, I know this about myself, so I can move. But at the same time, I am still looking for more. What else we got? What else do I got in my bag? What else do I got? And the more that I'm willing to kind of still look, to have the inquiry and stay in that conversation, the more that I can show up fully in my life. And I think that was something that, like I said, a number of years ago, I didn't even think that that was possible, or even, something that I needed to do.
Yeah. I find it interesting, the personal development process, like the self-discovery. We all take such different paths on it, and
Right.
sometimes I feel like I've been on it a long time too, or uh, probably before I had words for it, like you said. And I think it's helpful to recognize just what you said, that looking back at our prior selves, we can only do what we know to do. We can only do the best we can do in the moment. And
Right.
when we discover that next insight about ourselves or others, then we're able to do things differently. But unless you're open and curious and doing some of that exploring, it is harder to move forward. So yeah,
Right.
it's interesting. I do find a lot of times, William, with people writing books, and this may apply to other art forms as well, but with people writing books, they do have to often excavate some of those feelings, and it
Hmm.
is sometimes a process of reliving an experience. And it's,
Hmm.
you know, I've had more than one client in a conversation with me end up crying because they realized something about their past, or they realized how powerful they were, or they realized, how loved they were. That
Right.
it is part of that. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting how art and writing and that creative process can force you to deal with some of those things.
Right. So, the discovering the book within you. I don't know why that just came up for me. Um, Now, are you one of those people that believe that everybody has a book, or does everybody have a story, or is there a difference between the two?
Well, I think everybody's got a story. We all have our own
Right.
personal story. That's for sure.
Right.
We're all, and there are certainly patterns, but we're all unique in our paths that we take and our life experiences. So it's it's interesting to think about your life in story context. Like if you were going to
Hmm.
turn your life into a film, what would be the arc of your life?
Right.
That's an
Right.
interesting thing because everybody's the hero of their own story.
Right.
So what does that look like for you? And what do you want it to look like? Where are you in the story arc? Where do you want it to go? Um,
Right.
does everybody have a book in them? I think they can if they want to.
Right.
I don't
Okay.
know if I think an awful lot of people want to and don't take the step to do it because it is a lot of work, which
Right.
Um, I think everybody can write a book if they
Right.
want to. But does everybody need to? I don't know that everybody needs to.
Right.
I think living
And
your
I and I
story is.
and I think it starts with a level of discovery.
Mhm.
It starts with, like you were saying, it's just discover what I want to say, discover what is there. And I think too often, when you were saying what would my memoir be or what everything, I think a large part of my life was, to be continued, come back next week,
Yeah,
there was a lot
yeah,
of my life that I was like putting off until, something else happens, right? And it really, that was an okay way to live, but it wasn't, I determined that it wasn't my life. My life is full, and it deserves to be lived,
yeah,
instead of having this, wait until,
yeah.
part of my life. But I had to discover that for myself.
Yeah, I think everybody has to discover that for themselves. I think I share a common pattern with you that I have let a lot of my life happen to me
Hmm.
versus choosing what I want it to be.
Right.
Um, I think that's sort of my great lesson of life that I have to learn is to not only explore different things and discover possibilities, but actually make an active choice
Hmm.
about what I want to do, what I want to pursue, how I want to be. So the choosing for me has always been a difficult thing. But that's part of my path. I've discovered that's the thing I have to learn to do. It's hard.
Right. Right. And it's not good or bad. It's just that's what
That's
shows
just
up.
yeah.
Right. You just go from there. We could talk about this for hours, but I'm
I
sure there's a
know.
number of things that that will need your attention today, and also mine. Is there any last thing or anything that you want to share? I'll put up your website so people can connect with you. But if there anything that that kind of you discovered within this conversation,
Oh my gosh. There's so much. My brain is just going like this. I'm just
it's like one thing.
I just
Can I do two things, right?
yeah, I guess one thing I would come back to was we didn't spend a lot of time on it, but the idea of play and
Hmm.
curiosity and openness and the sort of the childlike
Hmm.
essence of curiosity that I think gets, I don't want to say beat out of us, but trained out of us as we grow up. And I would I would encourage people, including myself, to try to regain some of that childlike curiosity, to go out and just
Right.
explore, to see what you
Right.
discover, because you just don't know what it will be, but do it with a sense of fun in mind as well.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely. No,
yeah,
I told you, I've mentioned before in other things, I think that my curiosity was tried to, discouraged in me because it was
yeah,
something that it
yeah,
wasn't convenient for a lot of people around me, right?
yeah,
It's like, why are you worried about that? Why are you thinking about that?
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, reclaiming the play,
yeah,
in the discovery,
yeah.
getting your hands in. I'm back in the mud, right underneath rocks. Maybe I need to
Exactly,
go outside and kind of
exactly,
look under some rocks,
exactly.
right? Thank you very much. As you can see, you can see Karen's website there, and we'll be definitely looking for that blog. Um,
I will get it to you. But it's
so
been just a
all
pleasure.
right.
It's been a pleasure,
Okay,
William.
this has been great.
Yeah,
Well, thank you very much. If you have a moment, we can say goodbye within in the green
yeah.
room, but I'm gonna put you back in the green room, and then
All
we'll
right,
close the show, and we'll be back.
all right.
Okay. Wow, what did you discover in that conversation? I mean, really, um, that really was fun. Even though we didn't talk about play a lot, it was really to see what I'm willing to look at, to discover, to be aware of. Too often, I feel that, still that I need to stay present. I need to, you know, look at what's real in my life, and not look for anything else, not ask any questions. And I think within those questions, I have been able to discover, what's important to me, what's coming up for me, what emotions that I have around it. And within that discovery, there is a joy, there is a peace and rest, and there's a knowing that there's even more to discover if I'm willing. So the world wants you, the world needs you, and the world is waiting for you. So go be you. I do want to end a little differently today, is that tonight on my YouTube channel, I will have a join in conversation. It's a kind of a recap show, and I have a guest that will be on. So look for the advertisements and kind of do that. And if you want to not just comment on the conversation, but join in the conversation, just gonna text me, and we'll add you into the feed. But I'm excited about that, and there will be a couple of other shows and different things coming up around One Word Conversation and a lot of other things that we're doing. But thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.